What is the meaning of life? To understand this, you first need to realize that you are not just a philosopher. There are times that you ride your bike or grill burgers or go to the store to talk to your friend on the phone. There are physical parts of life and there are philosophical parts of life. And so if you try to answer this question, what is the meaning of life, by just philosophizing, you're going to come up very, very short. In fact, you should even think that full-time philosophers aren't philosophizing full-time. They have to interact in the physical world. And so you've got this layering of physical activity, philosophical activity, philosophical activity, etc. And so to find what the meaning of life is, you need both sides of the equation. Now, some people try to avoid the philosophical void in their life, and so they just pursue activity, and the void, the philosophical void inside of them, continues to grow, and it actually undermines the quality of living that these people ultimately experience. And you will see them basically running a rat race of sorts, trying to fill themselves up philosophically, but they don't. All the activities they're engaged in never bring any kind of intrinsic fulfillment, so that does not work. On the flip side, there are those who want to be overly philosophical and try to approach the entirety of life through a philosophical mindset, and it just never quite works, such as approach life with the concept of desire nothing, as if this oxymoronic statement will somehow build equilibrium inside of us so that we can approach life. But you find out that desiring nothing is trying to desire and not desire, and it never quite works. Or you've got those that say, they try to turn that void, like I was mentioning previous, that those that are only living on one side of the equation, they try to fill up philosophically by saying, just believe you can do it. Try harder. You put your nose to the grindstone. And they try to make some sort of motivational statement and place that in their philosophical bank of sorts and try to use that to propel them along the realm of activity. But again, that's sort of bankrupt, and it doesn't really ever deal with the philosophical side. There are others that are like, don't worry, be happy. This statement can apply to anything. Don't worry, be happy. The problem is the person that is never really concerned with the physical aspects of reality around them eventually becomes very hungry, or can't pay their house note, or basically has incredible problems surviving in a physical world. And so we need a system, a framework that brings the physical realm and the philosophical realm together very neatly. Now, there are some that are trying to bring the value in, and they're like, well, maybe I should just approach the things that are in front of me. It's like sex, food, and sleep. If I give myself enough sex, then maybe I will be fulfilled. Except we find that the more sex that one gives themselves, the more sex that they seem to need. And if they get too much, then it's really not fulfilling anymore. The same with food. If I just indulge food, it eventually takes me to a point where physically I am not happy. Or sleep, as I overindulge in sleep, that I just become more sleepy of a human. And this doesn't seem to tie the philosophical into the physical well enough to actually provide anything. Well, there's some that heighten this and like, well, maybe we need some kind of refinement. Maybe we need to be more cultured. Maybe we need to focus more on the sensations, and maybe we need to increase the qualities of the life around us to higher points of excellence. And so they try better varieties or new techniques for sexuality, but again, find that it's kind of the same dead end, the same loop. Or they try gourmet foods and increase the range of their palate and that which they have experienced, but again, find that even though they're more cultured and their sensations are heightened, they still don't have a philosophical framework. Same thing with sleep. I buy a better bed, I get better exercise, I've got better sleep patterns and habits. I'm taking the right supplements, but somehow or another that sleep never provides the intrinsic value that I need. Now, you could try, and some see this, they're like, well, the answer must be outside of my physical hand. Like some are reaching right under their hand, and some are like, well, I need to reach out from under my hand. And so let's get into a new field. Let's get into a new horizon, into a new hobby. Let's study particle physics. Let's distract ourselves with medieval literature. Maybe we should study American Indian pottery in the nth degree. And so because it is outside of the self, it seems a little more philosophical. And since it is loaded with information, it appears to be in the philosophical realm, but we find it is just a longer biological heightened sensation type of loop that eventually brings me to the point where, philosophically, I'm just not quite fulfilled. You see, when you ask the question, what is the meaning of life? It's actually a misnomer. It's a bad question. It is good that you are searching, but that question was handed to you and it took you down a wrong path. Now, if you think about the history of the question, all humankind is dealing with this. What is the meaning of life? What is the meaning of life? But think about the first time you thought of this question. You may have had wanderings and ponderings within yourself, but someone else furnished you with the words to take you down a deviant path instead of a direct path to the truth. Think about the first person that introduced this to you. Was it your teacher in school? Was it a wise friend of yours? Was it someone on a talk show somewhere? Did it come on a podcast that someone else actually made the statement, what is the meaning of life, as they framed a question for false answers? Let's think about the interrogative pronouns for a second. Who, what, when, where, why, how. Several of these, all of these except one, take us down wrong paths. Why and what take us down a philosophical only path that's always going to churn in this endless loop that's never quite fulfilling nor satisfying. When, where, and how take us down the physical side of the spectrum, and it never really includes the philosophical side of the spectrum, and so we're left with not the whole equation. But if you ask, who is the meaning of life? You all of a sudden see the philosophical and the physical married together. Intuitively, you know you are not the meaning of life. That is why you are searching and looking. Some have tried to be tricky here and say, well, you are the meaning of life, and if you will just accept that. But then we find out as we think we are the meaning of life, and we go through the biological needs and the heightened sensation needs and the culturalization needs, and we get outside of ourselves, that we still don't have that philosophical filling. We get closer to the truth when we begin to look at others, because others do begin to bring some intrinsic value into our life. We know intuitively that love and friendship and relationship and peace and quality and happiness with those around us is fulfilling to a degree. And if you ask a guy about his new girlfriend, well, she is the sun, moon, and stars to him for a time. She does answer all of his philosophical needs and his physical needs for a while, but eventually that crashes to earth. The same with very smart or talented engineers or scientists or artists that can heighten our minds philosophically and physically for a time and really wow us, but eventually that crashes down. So the question is there a who that can marry the physical and the philosophical together for us fully and completely? There is. I am that I am fits these qualities, every path that I am says to take, every activity that I am says to do, always adds intrinsic meaning to our life and thus proves that He is the meaning of life.